Yeah, my name is Andrew Romberger, and I am a health and PE resource teacher in Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools. This is my 18th year in education, and we serve over 176 schools, 400 plus PE teachers, health teachers. And I was for 12 years, I was an elementary school, elementary phys ed teacher. For 1 year after that, I did a grant program for some recess programs in our schools. And then for the past 5 years, I've been in this role as a health and physical education resource teacher to help, all schools, and, not just our health and PE teachers, but we really do a lot of stuff with classroom teachers as well that we'll dive into as we go along.
Fantastic. So I know you worked with a program called USA Baseball called Fun at Bat. What is the Fun at Bat program? How did your school utilize it, and where can others find it?
Yeah, so we got hooked up with Fun at Bat back in, I believe it was 2018 school years, 18-19 school year, before COVID, obviously. And it's an incredible program that's trying to grow the game of baseball, softball, through teaching developmentally appropriate throwing, catching, striking, team building activities. And in addition, they also have a book that comes with the program for each participant that works on character development, which is a really cool way to work in those SEL components that we're teaching now. So that we've always been teaching in phys ed, but now that we're really heightened on teaching those skills. So yeah, it's been a really good program for us. We haven't had a chance to use it a ton yet because of COVID, but I know more teachers this spring are really going to dive into that, to the toolkit that you receive from taking the program. So all teachers have to do an online course to get a certificate to say that they understand the program and the activities that go along with it. After completing that course, they get a kit sent to them. In our case, the kits were brought to us because we had them come to a back to school training, and they get like bats, bases, balls, some tees and things like that go with the program. So really it's a full turnkey program. So there's not a lot you have to do. It's all kind of set up for you to have success.
That's really cool. That would definitely have been something while I was in school I would have loved to do. Again, like we talked about prior, big baseball fan. Tell me a little bit about that SEL component. What are some of the aspects of SEL that this program works into its programs?
So to go along with like the team building, teaching about sportsmanship, fair play, team, again, the teamwork aspect, it's just teaching all the skills that students need to know in any game that they play. So they really just bring it to light, teaching it more through a baseball model, so that it carries over into other activities that they do.
How do you think physical education teachers can incorporate inclusion-based activities into the gym?
So this is a really good question. So I had a lot of stuff to say on this topic, because I learned a lot of inclusion-based activities early on, thank goodness, from Dr. Kurt Hinson, who is also known as Dr. Recess. And I got to see him early in my teaching career, and his whole model is based on inclusion-based activities. So from the very beginning, this is the way I kind of approached my practice. It took time to really understand what that really meant, but it's really looking to teach more small-sided activities with mixed grouping so that we can build better relationships from peer to peer, so that we're not really trying not to target those large group games. So students that maybe aren't as comfortable with an activity, that everyone can be included when we do small-sided, so that everybody has a job. It promotes less standing around, more active time. There's even some opportunities where it can provide multiple roles in different games and activities, kind of like a sport ed model, where some students are really good at leading a group and others are really good at doing things. So it brings that cohesiveness together. The integration piece is another big part of this, where, we find out about student interest and we can build those into our lessons to make it more inclusive, so students really have those memorable experiences that we're trying to give them. And then the positive feedback that you get and the things you learn from other students, you don't realize sometimes you have same interests as other students without knowing them and getting a chance to work with them. So, we have little clicks. It happens in schools, it happens in classrooms, but this opens the door for more opportunities for kids to get to know each other.
What are a couple of examples of inclusion-based activities that you can think of? Maybe, 2 or 3.
So the one thing I used to do is, like, let's say like kickball, for instance, or if you wanted to do like a baseball type activity or baseball game, instead of doing like splitting your class in half and doing, a 10v10 or 11, whatever kind of game you're trying to create, you do more 3v3 type games. So you set up multiple games at one time where everybody has a job. So instead of having outs, you may have where every student bats or kicks the ball before we switch sides. So it really doesn't matter what order you kick in or bat in because everyone gets a chance. And then when the ball's kicked or hit, everybody in the field has to touch the ball or catch the ball before you stop the runner. So things like that make everybody involved, and it also creates more of that cohesive environment.
What are 3 of your favorite lesson plans?
Oh, that was a tough one because there's so many things to choose from there. But I will say pretty much throwing and catching activities. I used to do one, 2 of them I'll talk about. During like holiday type games, I would do one called Snowball Wars. And I'd set up mats like forts, and I'd put cones and different things on top for students to try to knock off, kind of like a little carnival type game, but it was like a snowball game where we used yarn balls, and the kids would go nuts for it. My students absolutely loved it. And I probably had more cardiovascular activity during that game than probably any other game that I taught them. So it was incredible to watch. Floor hockey is by far one of my favorite games, not only when I was in school that I played, but it was also really fun for me to teach. And then the parachute, can't go wrong with the parachute. Even I had like older students, 3rd, 4th, 5th graders asking to do the parachute, and sometimes we would do some stuff with them, but the KE2 students go absolutely crazy for it. And there's so many things you can do with it, but those 3 are probably my most favorite things that I taught.
What are some of the reasons that you like those specific 3 activities?
Because I feel like, again, they're more inclusive. When you're teaching those types of games, everyone seems to have a role and everyone seems to fit, and it works for all skill levels. And that's the key too. So if we're providing something that works for everybody, then everyone feels they are important within that lesson. And again, there's things sometimes you have to do in order to make that happen, but I felt like it was a good fit for what I was trying to get across for students.
Tell me a little bit more about the B3 Brain, Body, and Behavior program. What is it? How can schools incorporate it? That kind of thing.
Sure. Yeah, so B3 was something that my team and I have 2 other colleagues, Kim Cook or Kim Morton, as some may know her as, because she got married, and then Keith Kramer. It was something that we felt was needed especially in our state and our school district, because our kids at the elementary level only get PE once every 5, 6, or 7 days. And so it's really hard to show growth. It's really hard to get students to really develop the skills that we need them to develop without having some assistance and help. Just like when we integrate other content areas into our subject, it was time for us to say, how can we get teachers to integrate what we do into what they teach? So B3 was developed to help develop fundamental motor skills to help spark the brain, build the body, to improve behavior, to increase academic performance. We were able to go to an action-based learning training, if you're familiar with that, down in Charleston back in 2016. And from that training, B3 was developed, because after learning about the motor skills and about the sensory systems and how so many of our students are not coming to us with bodies ready for learning to take place, because these underdeveloped systems really have an effect on learning. So in order for teachers to really get these students to where they need to get them, not only from a physical level, but cognitive, socially, and emotionally, they need to make sure these students are ready for learning. And we know that physical activity is one of the best ways to get students ready for learning. So after attending that training, we created this program. Also from, if you've read Spark, we learned a lot from that program. Even though that was a high school-based program, we modified it to work for the elementary level. And then we also worked with a curriculum called Ready Body Learning Minds. So that was very helpful in us creating this training that we developed for teachers across the district, where they learn the what, why, and how of B3. And then with the how, we gave them tons of examples of how they can utilize physical activity in their classroom. We even created 160 task cards based off of 4 components: the cardiovascular system, muscular strength, balance and flexibility, and sport training, that tied into a sensory system as well, to help teachers. So when they're recognizing certain behaviors in students, they can pull these cards out and have students do these activities so that they can help regulate their behaviors and their emotions and their moods, which is what they need. They don't have the coping mechanisms and the skills. We got to teach them. And a lot of times exercise and fitness helps get these students regulated and back so they can get into the classroom again or get back to learning and get refocused. It's been a huge success, not only in our district, but nationally. We've done some stuff with this as well, and it's only growing more and more. And we're really excited to see where this thing goes.
So a couple of things there I want to
Sure.
focus in on. So the first thing you mentioned is seeing that kids are not quite maybe sensory wise have not quite developed the sensory skills that you're looking for. This is something pretty common that I've seen in essentially all of the interviews that I've talked with other teachers, be they occupational therapists or physical education teachers. Do you have any tips or ways that you found success in being able to help develop underdeveloped students' sensory skills?
Yeah, so the task cards have worked wonders with our students. We've helped develop some motor labs. So what a lot of our B3 schools are doing now is they have a motor lab special in addition to their physical education class, which has really gone a long way with some of our students. Some of our schools have done before school programs to really target students that are needing that extra attention so that they get a daily dose of B3, outside of what the teachers are doing or outside of that PE time or recess time that they get every day. So we've done a really good job of really harnessing in and targeting specific programs and areas to help develop students further along. And the schools that are doing this have seen tremendous benefits. The students are able to now recognize when they need something, and they might have to go do, something with, let's say the proprioceptive system is one of those systems that we find students struggle, especially boys, because again, they have those underdeveloped bodies, but they crave heavy lifting, but they don't know that. They go from green to red very fast, so that they go from a calm state to an angry state. So something sets them off. We have specific muscle strength cards that work with that to help them regulate that, so that when we see their body language change after doing some exercise, now we can have that discussion to really fix what's going on so that they can get back to learning.
You also mentioned that you use cards as part of the B3 program. Why cards? It's just, I've seen a lot of teachers using cards as well. What is it about cards that you think is so beneficial when it comes to teaching?
Well, they're easy to implement because they can be you can transfer them to any area: classroom, hallway, tutor room, any place in the building. Students can carry them with them. Teachers can pull them out as a brain boost. They can use them as a prepare the brain activity in the beginning. We learned a lot of stuff from, Mike Kazala and Gene Blaze from the ABL stuff that we went through, and just having very simplistic things that they can have high success rates with are at their disposal, make it really simple and have teachers they're more willing to buy in, to help run this program when it's something that's simple and something that students can easily just take on their own and do it. Some of the cards, have cues on them that we understand that kindergartners can't necessarily read right now, but the image that goes with them can show them how to set their body up, or maybe another student can model or the teacher can model for them. Even during COVID, we were able to develop GIFs for every single one of our cards to show it in action, so that when students were home over the break, or not going to say break, during COVID, they were still able to utilize the B3 cards, but see the action. Because if someone couldn't model behind the screen for them, they can see it from a student's perspective. And I was able to use my daughters to create all those GIFs. So 160 or close to 160 of them. So that made a huge difference, and we have those going forward. So that's another add-on for teachers and students to have at their disposal anytime they want.
Do you have any advice for physical education teachers just getting into teaching?
And again, this is one of those questions too. There's a lot of stuff, we could talk about with that, but, I wrote down a few things that I think could really help someone just getting started. So don't try to be perfect. When we go into we first start, we think that everything has to be perfect. Don't worry about that, and don't be afraid to fail and make mistakes. You reflect and you grow from each experience. So that's the first tip. Be a sponge. Learn as much as you can from your state, your national associations like Shape America, join social media groups, really get involved with other teachers in your district, especially veterans, to learn from them and learn from their experiences. And that's a great way to connect and collaborate and learn from your peers. Don't take things personal. That's one of the hardest things that I had to get over, especially when I first started teaching. When someone doesn't want to do something, or a student is causing some problems in your classroom, try not to take it personal, because everything that we've learned, especially through B3 and through trauma-informed practices, there's usually an underlying factor that's causing the behavior. So just be more patient and try to find out what's going on so that you can help fix that problem. Be an active listener and take feedback and learn from it. Don't think that someone's trying to always come down on you and trying to say what you're doing is wrong. They're just trying to help you so that you can reflect on your practice and to grow. Yeah, and the last thing is build relationships as much as you possibly can in your school. Make connections first and foremost, with your custodians, with your staff, with your front office, before and after school persons, because all of us end up working together to make sure that everything we need is successful. So getting to know everybody as much as you can in your building really goes a long way. And it shows that you care about not only what the students need, but what the staff needs as well.
In terms of your own teaching experience, what are some things that you've learned along the way? Maybe a specific example of a time that you thought maybe you knew something and you later came to find out that there was a better way to do it. Something like that. Is there any sort of lesson that you feel as if you've learned as a teacher that has helped you grow as a teacher?
I would say probably the most important thing is in being in the role that I'm in now and going out and seeing different programs and really reflecting on what I did in the classroom, because you get stuck sometimes when you're in the same building, same students, same things over and over again. You kind of get stuck in that rut sometimes of you don't really understand the full grasp of what it means to be a physical educator. So to me, I would say that really understanding that students, like, not to take things personal and to not worry about if a student doesn't necessarily love something that you're teaching, to find out, why, number one, but two, to kind of see it from their perspective, get down more to their level and to meet them where they are, not trying to teach, not that I was trying to teach across the board the same way, because you got to differentiate your lessons, which I tried to do, but I think I learned a lot from being in this role, how to differentiate, how to be more patient and understanding with students, and to really build off of their interests to build the best environment I possibly can.
That's a really interesting point that you make about getting down to their level. Would you be able to give an example or a way that you've been able to get down to your students' level that you can pass on to other teachers?
Well, when I talk about getting down to their level, it's coming to the realization that a lot of our students are not doing the same things that we were doing when we were kids. As far as there's not as much students just going out and playing. And this is why we're having a lot of the issues that we're having. And they're not developing these skills because they're not interacting with their peers as much. So it's really having that full understanding that I'm taking something for granted, or I'm assuming that they know how to do something, when in fact, a lot of them don't. And I have to really get down to where they are and understand their prior knowledge, their prior experiences with how well they know something, to really get down to, okay, if I'm teaching this lesson, how many have had experience with this and where do I need to start? What's my pre-assessment? How am I going to assess this lesson to make sure that all learners are understanding what I'm grasping and they're able to apply it outside of my classroom? Because the goal is we want them to be able to apply what we teach them, whether that's at recess, at home, school, community, wherever they take our stuff. So if I'm not able to teach something and they can apply it, I need to go back and rethink how I'm teaching something.
You and your team have helped install Fit and Fun Playscapes stencils at your schools. Tell me a little bit about how that experience has gone for you so far. I guess just to start, how was it actually setting up, coming out of the box? How was it easy to set up? Did you have any issues? That kind of thing?
It was pretty easy, process as far as what we're doing. And I know Pam, your CEO and founder, she was able to really help guide us in the beginning. She actually helped create a website, and I'm sure all of you were included with that, just for our school district, to be able to have the systems and processes in place to successfully, implement and lay down the stencils. So that was a huge help. But after being able to do it a few times, we pretty much had the process down. We were able to then go out to schools and, even without the specialized page, to be able to go out and really support them and help them. One cool thing that happened off of this was we tried to make every school a little bit unique. They had the same type of stencils, but we wanted to add a little flair to different schools by even using some of the stencils and creating different designs. So that was a pretty cool approach. So some schools have a couple different things than others, but overall, very easy to implement, very successful program. And one of the great things going forward is, from the success we had, all of our new school builds are getting Fit and Fun Playscapes installed on their blacktops prior to the school year, prior to the school being finished, so that's part of the plans going forward for every school. So for us, that's a win-win because they see the benefits of it. So, but yeah, incredible program. I'd recommend it to anybody. Check it out. It's really simplistic, but it does bring out what we're looking to help our students with, and that's more opportunity and more chances to play. Because we have a lot of students that when they go out there, they don't know what to do. Large group games get them in trouble. And again, we're trying to create that inclusive environment. This helps to create that inclusion-based activities that we're looking for. Small-sided, individualized, small group, all that stuff occurs because of the stencils and having that variety on your blacktop.
What sorts of positive interactions have you seen with the stencils on the playground?
Way less behavior problems. I don't know how many administrators have told us they've had less referrals, less incidents, less accidents because of the variety that's offered. Teachers love the fact that they're dealing with less problems, and as far as facilitating those areas, it doesn't take as much management because students just naturally know what to do once they're out there. So, and students love it too, because they're like, we have options, we have things to do. We've heard that multiple times. So the success is that we're giving them more opportunities to play.
What are so just kind of out of my own curiosity, what are some of the stencils that you actually have there at the Charlotte-Mecklenburg School District?
So we did the nature walk or nature circuit packet. We did that. So that one's a huge success. Copycat has been probably the most popular of all the stencils that we hear from teachers. We've done the logs are part of that. So we've done Foursquare, ladders. We've done foot patterns. We've done, trying to think, hopscotch.
You've done a lot. There's a lot there.
Yeah, we have a lot of,
Wow.
I'm just trying to think everything. So the figure eight, not all the schools have that, but some do. So, and again, we've created some different ones based off of that as well for some schools that, weren't necessarily the design at the time, but we kind of made it our own. So
promo time.
Sure.
Tell everybody where they can find you, whether it's on social media or on the internet.
Sure. I'm really just on Twitter. I don't get on Instagram and all that. My colleagues do, but I'm at Arom, AROM 07 on Twitter. And if you start following me, you'll see a lot of incredible teachers that I follow as well, including my colleagues, to find some incredible research, incredible activities, ideas, things like that our community, that's the one awesome thing about social media, is all the incredible sharing that goes along with the health and PE world that we didn't have years ago when I first started teaching. So it's pretty awesome.